What are you going to reform? Look at this nation. It's a junk food eating nation. They poison their bodies with junk food, and they poison their minds with junk information. How could any intelligent adult turn on the TV and listen to the nightly news or any of this other stuff when you have these bad actors, these grade B actors reading scripts and that talk about Michael Jackson for a month and a half? So the people, again, America's a first, second, and third world nation wrapped into one. We're looking at a good 20% of the people right now that are neither right or left. They're all independent thinkers that are going to be at the forefront of this revolution. So again, we see this breaking down, and we also see the nation breaking down, and we can see it breaking down into smaller parts.
Well, Gerald, before the mainstream media, with other inoculation campaigns they push, they would just beat around the bush, never say there wasn't mercury in it. They would just leave that out and say it's safe. Now the New York Times and government program for public schools lies and gives parents and school children a handout saying there is no mercury, there is no adjuvants, there are no side effects, when every of the 5 versions of the vaccine, I'm holding one, anyone can get this at Walgreens, saying it can give you neurological disorders, saying it can sterilize you, saying it has mercury. I mean, I'm reading from FDA.gov, influenza H1N1 2009 vaccine information sheet, Diagnostics Limited, put out by Norvitis, the main vaccine maker.
Alex,
and it says,
look, the New York Times is the paper that took the nation to war against Iraq with the stories of, remember the aluminum tubes and the yellow cake? I mean, this is the New York Times that promoted the war. This is the New York Times that, when the markets were unfolding in August of 2007, quoted all these experts that said, oh, it's just a hiccup. Here, in front of me, the New York Times, last Saturday, October 17th, this guy goes on to say, well, there are plenty of experts who will tell you the worst is over, and I hope they're right. But as Mr. Roth, about this book, discovered in the 1930s, the experts can't predict the future any better than the rest of us. Yes, we can predict the future better than they can. It's the arrogance of the New York Times.
Well, but you said it, though. They're delusional. Don't they know that's why they're all going under and going bankrupt? Don't they know that's why mainstream media is in a crisis? And instead of telling the truth, they just intensify the lying. It's like putting gasoline on a fire to put it out. Let's take some
members of the same club. It's the White Shoe Boys Club. That's why you go to Harvard, Princeton, and Yale. What do you think? They don't teach you better than anywhere else. It's you get into the system. And you look at the same, you read the New York Times, they quote the same experts that have been wrong 100 times before to ask them what's going to happen next. And then they have the arrogance to say that nobody can forecast the future because they didn't see it coming. And again, this is the paper that took the nation to war. Let's not forget the stories about the yellow cake and the aluminum tubes and the nuclear weapons in Iraq.
It's just another level of lying, though, to say there are no adverse reactions to the vaccine.
Exactly. It's just another lie.
Let's talk to Mike.
They're used to it. This is what they're good at.
Michael in Florida, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, Alex. Hi, Gerald. Love the movie.
Thank you. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I have a question, or maybe it's just a comment. It's about the movie and the Federal Reserve. Basically, my question is if our politicians, if our Congress is all corrupt, they're passing bills without even reading them, and they're giving all our money away to offshore banks. That's one message, and then another gentleman that was interviewed in your movie said that he was in favor of nationalizing the Fed and putting the Fed in the hands of Congress. How could we trust putting the Fed in the hands of Congress if they're all corrupt? And,
well, I'd like to comment on that. Number one, we have different guests on who have different perspectives. This is not like some cult where we just sit here and believe what I think or believe what one guest thinks. It's a college of ideas. to get people really thinking about details. But number one, the Constitution says that the Congress is the boss because the people elect them. They follow the Constitution. The president then executes. The president just doesn't do what he wants. The Congress ran the coining and issuance of currency and credit, set the rules until 1913, and our nation on average had a 10% growth rate from 1789 until 1913. Now look at us today. We built the capital, we built the nation, we built this wealth without an offshore banking cartel playing hanky-panky with the interest rates and the money and giving themselves unlimited cash. And so, yes, we need to nationalize the Fed, and Ron Paul and others have a plan under the Constitution to get us out of this crisis we're in. If not, these bankers are going to keep raping us. Gerald Celente.
Well, you hit it. The Federal Reserve is Washington, and Washington is the Federal Reserve. At the break, I was mentioning about how Obama said about the too big to fails, used this dumb analogy about your neighbor's house burning down. And then on 60 Minutes, Ben Bernanke, several months later, said, quote, if you have a neighbor who smokes in bed and he risks to everybody, using the same exact analogy, his bogus analogy. And the point being is that there is no separation between the Fed and Washington. Federal Reserve is Washington. Look who the Treasury Secretary is. Only a blind person can't see it. It's Timothy Geithner. Where did Timothy Geithner come from? Well, he was the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, and now he's in charge of the Treasury. What do people need to get
let me go
over the head with?
Let me go further. And the guy talking about, well, somebody smoked in bed, we still got to put the fire out. It's Bernanke and Geithner and all these private bank heads that are the ones smoking in bed, but they weren't just smoking in bed. They're the ones burning the houses down because they own and run the fire department, and we didn't pay our protection money. And even when we pay them the tens of trillions of protection money, they just leverage that against our economy to buy us up. They're pirates. Can't people get it? They're criminal pirates, as Ron Paul has said. There isn't a grand jury in the country that couldn't indict every one of them for insider trading, conflicts of interest. You got all these Treasury Department heads making tens of millions apiece, in some cases billions, off of money they gave to their own stinking banks.
I know. I know. How could anybody not see it? This is the greatest bank robbery in history, but the banks are doing the robbing.